A lot of interesting figures have been introduced to us over the many years of GTA Online. However, you may have forgotten some of them over time naturally, so I'm here to give you a refresher. These are also more or less in order of which they appear. Subscribe to become a follower. Only 10% of you guys are subscribed, so let's get it to 11%. Hell yeah. Thank you to my channel members. Let's dive in. Lamar Davis. Lamar is the first face we see when we start our career in GTA Online. Well, at least in the past. I say that because the old tutorial of GTA Online involved Lamar picking you up from the airport, giving you your first gun, and taking you street racing, which also got you your first car. Rockstar has since gotten rid of this tutorial, which is a bit odd, but those who remember still know Lamar is the true OG. He has since appeared numerous times in the game, most recently in the contract with Franklin, and he's a familiar face that everyone loves. There's a reason why he's still relevant all this time later, even though he was just a side character in the story. Trevor Phillips. We actually meet Trevor very early in the lore of GTA Online, even before his appearance in the Heists update. In the original GTA Online on Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, there was a cutscene that could be triggered by going into his trailer in Sandy Shores. He then confronts the character about them doing jobs for other people, and in turn affecting Trevor's business in a negative way. He then enlists the help of the player as a means to pay him back, and it also may have helped our case that we are not scared of Trevor. He then goes on to appear in the Heist update for Series A funding and has since not made an appearance. Stephen Ogg has said himself that he isn't entirely into video games, so this may have been the last time we will ever see his character. Ron Jakowski. Ron also appears in the same cutscene where we first meet Trevor. Ron is basically the quest giver for Trevor as he handles most of the business side of things, but he also appears later on again in GTA Online in his own update Smuggler's Run. He also appears later on in the Los Santos Drug Wars update where he is now with a bunch of hippie people who are of questionable intelligence, but regardless, it was nice to see him after all this time, and it does appear, at least to me, that him and Trevor no longer have a relationship, and if they do, it definitely isn't as strong as it once was long ago. Simeon Yetarian. Simeon was one of the first quest givers in GTA Online. His missions were popular because all of them were rather easy to do and unlocked at very low levels, which not all missions did. The more popular missions like Titan of a Job and Rooftop Rumble unlocked at higher levels, but Simeon was more or less available to us from the start. He also got his own line of missions in the Repo Work series of missions, and once again, those are all rather simple but fun missions that are easy for most people. His dealership also finally opened to the players some time ago, and you can check it out every week to see which cars are on sale or returning after being removed from purchase from the websites. Martin Madrazo. Martin was also one of the first quest givers, and his missions were generally some of the higher paying missions at the time. They were also more complex though, most of the time involving taking out a target or taking out many targets. He has appeared in a good amount of updates since then, also receiving his own line of missions as well. He most recently appeared in the most recent update where he introduces us to some characters we'll talk about soon enough. Martin has proved to be a valuable contact of the player, and I'm sure he will continue to be a friendly contact of ours, as I don't think the player wants to piss off a cartel boss. But maybe you never know. Gerald. Gerald was basically a lower version of Martin for the missions. His missions were pretty simple, but usually involved some kind of shooting or a drug deal. Lamar introduced us to Gerald in a cutscene that has since been deleted, which is a bit unfortunate, but he also did get his own line of missions later down the line as well. See what I did there? Line of missions down the line. Alright, but more or less he's been out of the story for a while, and I don't see him coming back really. His theming of simple gang-related missions just doesn't fit with what our character has become. A CEO, a business partner, whatever. But those who remember Gerald are the real ones. Brucey. Brucey was also introduced to us relatively early in the game as he sells us Bullshark testosterone, but he was not physically introduced to us. It was only over the phone, but he did make a physical appearance later on in the Diamond Casino and Resort update where he basically trains with Tao Chang. It was nice to see a familiar face from GTA 4, and it goes to show that Rockstar does pay tribute to the past, and more specifically characters that were beloved. But not all of them received this treatment, and we'll just move on from there. Dom. Some of you may not even know who Dom is, but let me explain. He was basically the quest giver for the original parachute missions that are actually still around. Some got confused with him being an online though because he dies in story mode. The last mission you do with him kills him, but then he appears in online. His appearance wasn't physical though, and from my understanding, everything from the gun running update and before took place before the events of GTA 5 story mode, which means that Dom was alive at the time of his appearance in online. Regardless, he hasn't appeared since because now he is dead, and has been for many years at this point. Lester Crest. Lester is just the greatest fictional character ever made, and that is no glaze at all. He offers many helpful services, including off the radar and remove wanted level. He's made consistent appearances throughout the years and worked with us in the heist update before the story mode took place. It is interesting how he had a wasting disease in the story mode that appeared to be pretty bad, but years later he seems to be doing just fine in GTA Online. He often tasks us with robbing somewhere, whether it be a bank or a casino. He seems to be down to do just about anything. He's most definitely a fan favorite, so I can't see Rockstar ever killing off his character, and I hope, matter of fact, that he gets a nice send-off before we go into the GTA 6 era. Agent 14. Agent 14 is introduced to us in the heist update, and I particularly really love how his character is written, and furthermore, I think he is maybe one of the more underrated characters in GTA Online. His dry humor isn't trying too hard, and he just seems like an average guy that somehow ended up working for the IAA. He also somewhat caused the Doomsday scenario, as he trusted Avon Hertz to deal with the Russians, when in reality it was really Hertz that needed to be dealt with by the Russians. Strangely enough, he also appeared in the most recent update where we see him boarding a jet with Mr. Faber on board. What he could possibly be doing on the jet is anyone's guess, but I guess it shows that Rockstar hasn't forgotten about him and is maybe including him in a future DLC. Paige Harris. I'm not going to really include many heist members, but Paige has made consistent appearances over the years in many different heists, and she's usually the best hacker you can choose in most scenarios. She was also in GTA 5 story mode, where she was once again a heist member. It's been a while since she made an appearance though, and we haven't really needed a hacker for any heist since the casino heist, so her future in the game is rather uncertain, but I thought she was worth mentioning. Benny. Lamar introduced us to Benny in the Lowriders update. He customizes cars to lowriders, but not exclusively. He also mods cars with wide bodies and crazy mods in general, and for a long time his shop was the only place to modify his cars, but now there are many places to modify cars with Benny's mods. But he brought lowriders to the game, which of course many people were requesting, and they got it. Office Assistant. Our office assistant doesn't have a name for starters, and also just has a very monotone voice and personality overall. They help us with many illegal ventures, and they don't charge a daily fee, which is pretty nice. You can either get a male or female assistant. That sounds so awful, like we're not buying humans here, but I guess we kind of are. I mean, we're not, but you know. Anyhow, they haven't left the office since Finance and Felony, and I don't think they plan to anytime soon. Malk. Malk is once again another familiar face from times past. He helps us set up the clubhouse and gives us some missions to do in the clubhouse as well, although I do not recommend doing them. I was really happy to see Malk come back, even if it was only for one scene or for one purpose, because Rockstar could have used any generic NPC to introduce us to the clubhouse, but they chose Malk, which was pretty nice. However, his whole thing is biker related stuff, so I doubt we will see him again unless another biker update comes out, but I highly doubt that. But it was nice to know that he is still alive and well all these years later. He even brought his double T to Los Santos, which was a nice detail. LJT, or Lester. LJT is basically confirmed to be Lester after he slips up in a phone call with the player, because how would LJT know who Lester is unless LJT is Lester? But he essentially helps us run the MC businesses. I think Lester uses a facade because running guns and drugs is a risky business, even more so than robbing banks. So to justify doing it for himself, he uses a fake name and a voice changer to hide his identity. Even if you don't believe it's Lester, which is fine, LJT was only ever used in the Bikers update. He never made a physical appearance, and I don't see him serving a purpose outside of that. Avon Hertz. Avon Hertz was a very cool antagonist that served his purpose well. He's an eccentric billionaire who wants to make money saving the world. He always came off as being a bit of a douchebag, and something was just always off about him. Of course there was, and we later kill him in the Doomsday heist, but it was really cool how Rockstar was able to really parody something in real life, or someone, this of course being Elon Musk. I also like how he took note that our character doesn't talk. He goes on listing all these accolades and stuff, and our character just intensely stares at him without saying a word. Certainly freaked him out a bit, but I think his character was written well, and I really enjoyed the Doomsday update. Clifford. Now Clifford isn't really a person, but he is a character nonetheless. Clifford is basically an advanced AI system, and this was before really the rise of AI, which was pretty cool. That is not limited to one entity, if that makes any sense. Clifford is more of a program that sort of makes its way into robots, usually heavily armored robots with miniguns, some are even invisible. It was created by Avon Hertz to help him take over the world, and when we kill Hertz at the end of the Doomsday heist, we don't kill Clifford, which leads to it to produce Juggernaut clones down the road. The IAA has some leftovers from Clifford's code, but they've yet to do anything with it, maybe leaving the door open for another appearance, but I could see Cliffy not making a return ever again as well. Agent Rackman. Rackman is an IAA special agent similar to Agent 14, though she has more seniority over him. She handles the IAA's side of the Doomsday scenario after Agent 14 proved to be unreliable for the IAA. Her tone is always very serious and high-strung, she never seems cheery, never cracks any jokes, she's focused on accomplishing the task she has, and to her point, she does in the end solve the Doomsday scenario with the help of the player. It was nice to see a new IAA agent after so long, and she fit the theme of the heist very well, and I wouldn't be mad if we saw her again in a later update. Agent ULP. ULP was a nice nod to the past once again that I'm sure every fan of the series appreciated. He appeared as a major character in GTA 4, helping Nico with his goals, and he appeared in GTA 5's story, although he is now voiced by a different voice actor as Milton James, the original voice actor, passed away. I think the essence of ULP is still carried well, and it's rare that Rockstar recasts a character, which goes to show the standing of ULP in the game as a whole and in the story. ULP did get his own line of missions where he swears us in as an IAA agent, where we go on various missions for the agency. I would say to not expect him to be in a later update or in GTA 6, but once again, Rockstar rarely recasts characters, which shows that maybe they have more plans for ULP in the future. But we'll have to wait and see. Bogdan. Something strange about Bogdan is that Bogdan is actually the codename given to him by the IAA, although when we board his submarine, he claims that Bogdan is indeed his actual name, so I guess it's not a codename? Not sure what to believe, but take that for what you will. Bogdan of course turns out to be the good guy in the Doomsday scenario, and he helps us take down Avon Hertz along with the IAA. I do wish that Bogdan appeared again, but his character is so specific and, well, unique, I can't see him fitting into an update where the update would require the presence of a Russian military member, but I guess you never know. I do like how he trusted our character even after pointing a gun at him as he tells us where the emergency escape is when the sub is going down. I guess the Russians are kind people. Tony Prince. Tony Prince was just the cherry on top for the After Hours update. This update just came at a time generally when the 80s was back, everybody wanted retro everything in games in real life, and this update really brought those vibes. Could Rockstar have really done it any other way? If they had made a nightclub update without Tony, I'm pretty sure people would have been mad and confused, which is not a good combination. Tony Prince is a returning character from GTA 4, and he's just as good here as he was back then. He helps you get the nightclub up and running, and also helps with the operation of things overall. I just can't explain how much hype there was for this update. For OGs, for new players, everybody was excited for this update, and once again, Tony just had to be there, and I'm really glad Rockstar brought him back for this update. Would have been nice if they brought back someone else, but it's okay I guess. English Dave. Dave is a bit of a... let's just say he's extroverted. He helps acquire the DJs for the club, but aside from that, you really don't see him much in the club. Later on, he does appear in the KOIAER heist where you can see him partying on the island. Sometimes you can find him in a cage in the compound as well. Not sure how you end up there, but he does some crazy stuff, so... yeah, really like how Rockstar added some English vibes to After Hours, and they are an English company after all, at least primarily, so I'm sure they liked it as well. Laszlo. Laszlo was a great character in story mode, and he came back in After Hours for some more fun. It's funny that they added him because he honestly doesn't do anything for the business. He tells you to run promotions when the popularity is low, but they could have had Tony or Dave do that, but they chose to bring back Laszlo instead, which I am not opposed to at all. Laszlo as a character is written very well, but I'm afraid that we will likely never see him again. His actor Laszlo Jones has since split with Rockstar, and I don't believe they could recast anyone for the role because technically the character Laszlo is himself. Not sure how that would work, but even if they never bring him back, he was a fun character to see, and I'm glad we got an update on him in After Hours. The 4 DJs. These are just the 4 DJs that play in the club. None of them are really significant characters, but all their music is pretty good. I particularly like Dixon's music the best. Bryony. Bryony is a quirky character introduced to us as part of the Arena War update. It's sad that the update was tied to a game mode because that means that if nobody plays the game mode, nobody plays the update, which kind of makes all the hard work making the update go down the drain. She was never really meant to be a major character though, just kind of a helper for the Arena War. Alan or Al. This dude served even less of a purpose than Bryony. He rarely appears in the Arena War, kind of just in the first cutscene, and he's always talking about some freaky stuff. I don't know what's up with him. But once again, was never intended to be a major character, kind of just a manager for the Arena War, and he served that purpose just fine. Once again, I feel bad for both of these characters as their time in the spotlight was very short-lived. Miss Baker. Miss Baker is a passionate manager of the Diamond Casino. She gives us missions, or technically I guess Tao Chang gives us the missions, but she manages it, that deal with many problems of the Diamond. The last mission shows us that the Diamond almost shut down if not for some intervention where Miss Baker apologizes and says, I thought we could build something right here. Of course, at the end of the day, she keeps her job managing the Diamond and all is well. I really like how dedicated she is to keeping the Diamond up and running. It seemed that every obstacle that came up she was on immediately. I do hope we see her again though. Her having a managerial background, I think she'd be perfect for the mansion update this winter, but time will tell. Tom Connors. If you ever need champagne, no matter where you are in the world, I'm sure Tom Connors could find a way to get you some. That basically sums him up as a character. In any scene you find him in, more or less, he's just there to offer champagne. Although I will say when you first enter the diamond, he gives you a tour, but he does offer champagne during the tour. He basically just handles concierge services for the guests, and he can be seen at his desk inside the diamond taking important phone calls that I'm sure are related to champagne. Vincent Effenberger. Vincent got his start working as security for the diamond, but he wanted something more, so he joined the police force, only to be bullied for his last name and more importantly discovered that most of the officers are corrupt, working for a cartel up north. He then sort of helps you rob the cartel because you're also technically robbing the cops. He just wants some honest justice to be brought to the corrupt cops, and he more or less achieves that. It was interesting how they chose to bring him back and kind of build a DLC around him and not make him fit into a DLC, if that makes any sense. I enjoy seeing his character, and I'm sure he's out there somewhere serving justice. Tao Chang. Tao Chang is a seemingly harmless but actually extremely ruthless leader of the Triads. The casino is a family business of his, and it of course goes through various issues which we help resolve. Tao of course takes up yoga or something with Brucey, and every time we see him he's always kind of crazy, hyper, telling us to kill someone. It's also notable to mention that he does know a bit of English. He speaks it when pleading to our character to kill one of the Duggins, but he doesn't speak English at all besides that one time. But Tao Chang has not been seen since the events of the Diamond Casino and Resort update. Tao Chang's translator. I find it funny how after all these years, Chang's translator never got an actual name, or at least it's never revealed to us. But wherever Tao is, the translator is there also. I also find it interesting how much incriminating information this random translator knows, but of course he will never say anything, or he will cease to exist. Thornton Duggan. Thornton is the least worst Duggan, but he's still a Duggan after all. He did help us kill his uncle by giving us his location so he could reach a price with the Triads to buy the casino, but it's later discovered that he kind of screwed over Tao Chang in one way or another, but he did sort of resolve the initial issue, so I guess we owe him that. Avery Duggan. Avery is the craziest Duggan there is. He's from Texas and is immensely wealthy. He's the one who was behind all the chaos at the Diamond. He paid people to ransack it and cause destruction in a plot to drive the price of the casino down so he could buy it for cheap. Of course, we kill him after he tries escaping in his helicopter, which I never really liked. We don't really see him die, he kind of just blows up, but at least we know he ain't alive, or at least there's a good chance. He was a good villain for the update and also introduced us to the Duggins as a whole, which carried on into some updates later down the road. Georgina Chang. Georgina is Tao Chang's younger sister who seeks payback at the Duggins for ripping off her brother for the Diamond. She hacks Lester's phone and arranges a meetup with him and the player where we go on to rob the Diamond numerous times, but more importantly, Lester sort of falls in love with Georgina. She offered money, she said Lester couldn't do the job, anything to get him to do it, but in the end, he chose to do it for her. We got Lester getting a girlfriend before GTA 6, ladies and gentlemen. Her and Lester haven't really been heard from since then, and I don't particularly mind that. It's a nice way to send off the two characters, although I would like one more update about them, and after the extensive life of crime, Lester deserves to retire. Wang. Wang is a close associate of Georgina's who he is basically an assistant to. He talks the player through some parts of the Diamond job in general, but he's never really seen in any great detail. He's always with Georgina, but perhaps with Lester around, Wang will have to find another boss. Jimmy DeSanta. Jimmy is described by Lester as a family friend who needs to get his start somewhere in the world, and he does that by being a janitor in the arcade. He's basically useless though. We don't get his contact, and he doesn't do anything in any missions. He sort of just chills around the arcade, probably just to get away from his dad Michael. Wendy. Wendy is the bartender for the arcade and she does help with some management of the business. Other than that, she sort of also just chills around and doesn't do much. Packy McReary. Once again, I'm not going to mention many heist members, but Packy is notable as he appeared in GTA 4 as a pretty major character and he made his way to Los Santos, still continuing his life of crime. He's a gunman for the Diamond Casino heist and he gets you good guns at a pretty high price, which makes him not too popular. If you're going to do the heist, I recommend using the cheapest crew members except for the hacker for maximum profits, but it's still cool that you could choose them. It's cool that they brought him back, and the way you unlock him is actually pretty cool as well. You break him out of a prison transport, which unlocks him for the heist. All these years later, it's nice to know that Packy is still alive. Miguel Madrazo. Miguel is Martin Madrazo's son. His place in the story is basically being a middleman for the Madrazo's cartel after a crazy dude in the Caribbean obtains valuable information about the cartel that could lock them up, essentially blackmailing them for money. Rockstar bringing back the Madrazo family was interesting, and they did it in a way that felt pretty authentic. Miguel is not as intimidating as his father and sort of takes a more lighthearted approach to things, but the cartel is not to be messed with. Once again, a nice update to what's going on with the Madrazo family. Patricia Madrazo. I was really surprised they brought back Patricia into the story. She doesn't play a major role at all, or a role in any sort of way. She kind of just treats Miguel like her son, which he of course is. There is an interesting scene at the end of the heist, which shows her and Trevor having a bit of fun. I guess they had to bring her back to sort of keep Miguel grounded, and I will say she didn't age very much over these past few years at all. Neither has Martin, to be fair. Good genes, I guess. Pavel. Pavel helps us operate the submarine and of course undertakes the KOIAER heist with us. It's funny how when we buy the submarine, Pavel is just thrown into the purchase for free. It's like buying a yacht or a boat with a captain that is literally attached to the yacht. It's like buy one get one free, you get a free captain. Pavel really doesn't take a very large cut of the job at all, which is also very nice. You can find him working on the submarine and doing miscellaneous work around as well. He also recently came back in Agents of Sabotage where he helps us do some off the books operation. Not sure why exactly they brought him back into that update, but I'm not complaining. Moody Man. Moody Man, or KDJ, whatever you want to call him, is introduced to us in the LS car meet. He gives us jobs to do for him, and those jobs are relatively easy and straightforward. He has a very monotone attitude, and he's just a chill guy overall. Sasanta. Sasanta is basically inseparable from Moody Man. She also gives us jobs to do in the auto shop, and aside from that, she's a relatively minor character in the grand scheme of things. I will say her car is hideously modified, but you know, that's subjective. She's also a bit freaky, but aren't we all? El Rubio. Juan Strickler, or El Rubio, is the crazy dude from earlier with an island in the Caribbean. He's in competition with Madrazo's cartel, and after hearing about this, Miguel tasks us to rob him to steal the files in his safe back. We of course rob him numerous times, but he only makes a physical appearance during the introduction to KOIAER. He kind of just shows us around and comes off as very intimidating overall. He kind of reminds me of Scarface in a sense, but instead of having a tiger, he has a panther. I do wish his story was continued a bit because I mean, we've been robbing him for a long time at this point, and he must be up to something, but I guess time will tell. El Rubio greatly contributed to the KOIAER heist, and he was an interesting original character indeed. Scott Storch. I honestly didn't know who this was. I guess he predated my time a bit, but after looking him up, this guy made a lot of hits from the 2000s and even recently also. He was introduced in the KOIAER heist, and it's always cool when Rockstar brings real people into GTA Online, as it allows me to feel more cultured overall. How? Hal gives us the ability to make our cars insanely fast with his tunes called Hal's Special Works. He's introduced in the Car Meet update, and this is once again one of those things where Rockstar could have gone and just added a completely new character to introduce HSW to us, but they chose to bring back Hal, who appeared in story mode years ago, which is just some nice continuity. He used to be at the LS Customs next to the airport as well, but since the update he can now only be found inside the Car Meet customizing cars. Franklin Clinton. I mean, if you don't know Franklin, have you really played GTA 5? It was so cool to see how Franklin has been doing after all this time and get an update on him and his family overall. He now owns a business helping celebrities with their issues, but so far he has only helped Dr. Dre in the story. Of course, he's likely helped more in the lore, but as for what we see, that is all. After the contract was added, we can now see a car with a license plate that says Tanisha outside his house, and we can also see some children's toys outside as well, which heavily implies that he is now a father, which is pretty cool. I'm sure it was cool for Solo to work with Rockstar and everybody else in the contract, probably a dream of his, I'm sure. Lamar, of course, was there also, and the update as a whole was just perfectly executed with him in it. Imani allows us to customize our cars with Imani tech, which makes our cars not be tracked with homing rockets, which couldn't have came sooner. She was also introduced in the contract, and she's a techie, smart individual overall. She's also somewhat Franklin's second in command, as she helps with some of the operations of the business, like during some of the missions. Dr. Dre. I still can't quite believe to this day that they brought Dre into the game. It was an expensive decision, no doubt, but I also don't doubt that it paid off. Rockstar really put a lot of care into making sure this update was good, and Dre just sealed the deal, and the fact that he even did this role was kind of crazy. It's not like he needs the money or anything. He strictly did it for the culture, and I'm happy that Rockstar made such a bold choice to bring him in, and it once again paid off. His role in the story is basically just trying to get his phone back that has some unreleased music on it, personal documents, things like that. He's actually first introduced in the KOIAER heist as he was going to board the plane with us, but last minute he's informed that his phone is stolen, so he stays behind. We of course help him, and then he flies away into the sunset, never to be seen again. DJ Pooh. DJ Pooh also helps us with some of the Dre missions and is kind of another contact for us. If they brought Dr. Dre, they had to bring Pooh as well. He was also first introduced in the KOIAER heist as he was also going to board the plane with Dre, but then of course he ends up staying. Pooh was part of the complete package of the contract, and he only added to the success of the update, and you can also find him in Record A Studios just chilling around. Anderson .Paak. Not a huge fan of Anderson .Paak. Every time I think of him, I think of his XXL freestyle, which wasn't great to say the least. If you want to see that, just look it up on YouTube. But it was cool once again to see a real figure in GTA Online and bring more people into the update and into the game as a result, which I will never be mad at. Jimmy Iovine. Jimmy Iovine is not as much as a public figure as Dre, but he is still an immensely important figure behind the scenes. He's a close friend of Dre, and as a result, if Dre got added, Jimmy had to be included in the deal. He doesn't contribute as much to the story in the contract, definitely just a side character, but once again, he added to the complete package of the contract. Marnie. Marnie's the Epsilonist brought back in the contract. After the shootout occurs, she kind of just flees the scene and is never really seen again in the story. Jimmy Boston. Jimmy Boston is the other Epsilonist who also tries to take over Lamar's business. Lamar makes a face that is, let's just say, not very liking of his idea to turn his business into Boston Bakes, which is not LD certified 1000 times organic original produce or something. And once the shootout occurs, he also flees and has not been seen since then, although it is cool that they brought him back as he remained dormant in the story for just around a decade at the point of the contract, after appearing as a side character in the story for the Epsilon program. Johnny Guns. Johnny is sort of the main villain of the contract. He's the one behind the theft of Dre's phone and his music getting leaked. We of course track him down and Dre deals with him in a very humane manner, of course. I actually thought that he was Snoop Dogg, and I'm sure other people did too before we met him, but either way, he was a decent villain who didn't get much time, but his cutscenes were pretty good. Dax. Dax is sort of a freak. He's one of the hippies we meet in Ellis Drug Wars, and for some reason we end up doing work for him. Aside from the missions, he has no function in the game, as his friend or fellow hippie helps us with the Aztec lab if you have it. This update wasn't very popular, but I still appreciate Rockstar for introducing new characters at all, because they could have just done an update where a contact is on your phone, tells you to do stuff, and that's it, but they added new characters with cutscenes and dialogue, which is nice. Mutt. Mutt helps us with the operation of the Acid Lab. He was also introduced in Ellis Drug Wars and appears in those cutscenes as well. Since then though, he has not made an appearance, and I don't think he will. The characters in this update were very clearly meant for this update and this update only. But nothing's wrong with that, and the Acid Lab is still a good business today, so he's still known, I think, for the most part, as most people still use the Acid Lab. Luchadora. Luchadora is introduced to us by body slamming Ron to the floor, which is interesting. She contributes to the story of Ellis Drug Wars, but not much more after that. She's probably the least hippied out from all of them, so that makes her a bit easier to understand, which is always nice. Isaiah Friedlander. I was really surprised to see Friedlander in this update, and it only proves to me that if there is a character from the story mode that can be killed but is not required to be killed, then 99% of the time, they are still alive. His role in the update is kind of a hypnotic villain, and the missions in the update were pretty fun. At the end of the missions though, we track him down in a jet, but we don't actually kill him. So he's still alive, possibly leaving the door open for a future update, but he was very specifically written for this update. I can't see him coming back, but he technically can. Charlie Reed. Charlie was introduced in the Smuggler's Run update, but only as a mechanic for our aircraft. He was brought back as a bigger character in San Andreas Mercenaries, where we undertake several operations for him that basically all involve attacking Merryweather. He mostly just talks over the phone though. There aren't really any cutscenes with him and the player. He was a good fit for the update though, as he had an appearance in Smuggler's Run, which is of course mostly aerial based, and it's always nice to see some characters come back. Yusuf Amir. Mr. Arab Money himself made a long-awaited return in the Chop Shop update. We work with his cousin in the business stealing cars, and although we only see Yusuf for one cutscene, it was very nice to see him, and it really had a nostalgic feeling to the update. Newer players probably don't even know he was in GTA 4, nonetheless even know who he is, but for fans of the franchise, this was a big win to see, and hopefully Rockstar really continues this trend in online and in GTA 6. Jamal Amir. We work with Jamal in the Chop Shop, and he's the one we actually talk to in the missions. I guess Yusuf's actor probably costed a bit too much for an update that Rockstar was just trying to crank out, but I still enjoyed seeing him. As for Jamal, he really only exists in the Chop Shop and isn't seen outside of that. Mod. Following a similar theme to the prior update, Maud was brought back from the story mode, but for the main actual missions of the update, we communicate with her daughter. She's a bounty hunter who I guess is now retired and left her daughter to run the business with us. I don't necessarily mind these little cameos in these updates because it at least gives us an update on the character. It's hard to get mad at that, and the update was just okay. Jeanette. Jeanette, like formerly mentioned, is who we actually run the business with. It's notable that she does not take a cut from any of the jobs we do, but something that is direly annoying is how whenever you're trying to start a bounty hunter mission, you have to wait for her dialogue to stop. You cannot just continue with the mission, you have to wait for her to stop talking. The dialogue is cool, you know, the first time around, get some background on the target, but if you've already done the target before, the dialogue should be skippable because it's just very redundant. But as for Jeanette herself, she's just okay, I guess. It's hard to get acclimated with a new character with not much history, but she's just fine. Nothing wrong. Jody Marshall. Jody is probably one of the only people that seems to understand our character. In some dialogue she has, she tells us how she knows that our brain functions differently than most. She probably knows why we don't speak, but she keeps quiet about it for the most part. She's an ex-FIB agent who sends us on various missions for money, and they're all pretty easy to do. Of course, we work out of the garment factory, and we also utilize the help of Pavel, which is nice. But as for Jody, once again, she was very clearly made for this update. It made sense for her, she was a good fit, she has history with the FIB, she worked well with the update, and I can't see her coming back. Oscar Guzman. Rockstar bringing back Oscar was really surprising, to be honest. He was a very minor character in the story who I don't even think made a physical appearance. I enjoyed seeing him though, and the missions he gives us are cool, but I wouldn't say entirely original. The voice actor Gabriel Sawyer, who actually has some history with Rockstar, as he voiced Javier Escuela in Red Dead Redemption 2, but he didn't voice him in part 1. Javier was probably my favorite character aside from Arthur, of course, so seeing his voice actor here is nice. The update itself was just fine, but having Oscar come back definitely only helped things. Raph. Raph is the assistant, or I guess second in command, of Mr. Faber, who is an important businessman who apparently has a hand in every money-making scheme in Los Santos. Even though we've only heard of him now, Raph helps us in the mission sort of just manage the businesses, and he isn't particularly a quirky character, but he serves his purpose just fine. Mr. Faber. Mr. Faber's the guy who apparently runs everything in Los Santos. I say apparently because it's hard for a character who has just now been introduced to the player to be seen as a really dangerous threat and somebody who runs things in Los Santos when we've only just heard about him now. Apparently even Martin fears him to a certain extent, although he won't admit it. Faber appears for one cutscene and then Raph takes over the business side of things, so not much is actually known about Faber. I can almost guarantee that we will hear from him again though, as introducing a new supposedly important character this late into the game has to have some reason behind it. But as for many things, time will tell. I greatly appreciate you for making it to the end of this video. I'm sure it's long, but it's hard to tell in the editing before the video is done, so you know, I appreciate you for being here, man. And before you click off, I'm just kidding, you have my permission, which you of course require before you are able to click off of the video. Imagine if that was true. Thank you to my channel members, which for the month of October are as follows. Thank you to Anawack, KOIAER, Karso, Agaro, PAARTHUR, Radioactive 661, Jetari, and GooBirdz. I greatly appreciate you guys. I appreciate you all. Please have a great day or night or evening. I'll see you all later. Stay warm, stay safe, and goodbye. Hey, look, hey, look. You better subscribe, because if you do not, I might cry. You better subscribe, I ran up the bands in GTA 5. You better subscribe, because if you do not, you might cry. You better subscribe, because if you don't, I might die. You better subscribe, I'm about to go crazy on the beat. You better subscribe, hey, wait for the beat to drop, ooh, you better subscribe, hey, you better subscribe, I'm out of breath. You better subscribe.